Hello everybody and welcome to this session. My name is Naomi Love and I'm really delighted to be here today talking to you about our MSc Practice Track, which is one of the opportunities on some of our master's programmes here at Bath. So today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how we bring your learning to life at Bath, focusing on the Practice Track. So as mentioned, my name is Naomi Love. I work in the MSc Careers team here at the University of Bath School of Management alongside my colleagues Caroline and Sarah. So my role is MSc Careers and External Engagement Advisor. So if you do join us at Bath, I'll be here to support you through all stages of your job search, employability and career planning. I'm really delighted to be joined in this session by Anna Samson. She is one of our 2019 MSc Management graduates, and she is now working at Accenture. And she is going to be talking a little bit later about her experience of taking the practice track when she was doing her master's here at Bath. One thing I would say is please do ask questions throughout. We'll have time for questions at the end, but when they come to you, please do ask them in the Q&A and we'll keep an eye on that and we'll go through questions at the end. So I wanted to really highlight how connection to industry is built into our DNA here at Bath. We know that industry connections are really important to students, and it really forms a huge part of our teaching and our research, and it's something that we bring into our MSc programmes. It's been a really core value of Bath right from our very beginnings, and you can see it was part of our charter back in 1966. You can see an aerial image of what the campus looked like then. I can promise you it looks incredibly different now. There's a lot more new buildings and there's a lot of development that's gone on that site over the last few years. As a university, we work with a huge range of companies, right from large multinational companies to startups and NGOs. And we work with organisations in the UK and globally. And we know that these industry links give us a real benefit in understanding what recruiters and employers are looking for. We know they're looking for well-rounded graduates that have an understanding of the real world. And that is why we have these embedded employability initiatives as part of our programmes. Recruiters are looking for a range of skills. So as well as that really strong academics, which Bath is really proud of, we know that recruiters really are looking for practical experience, whether that be internships, work experience, projects or volunteering. We also know they're looking for reflective students, so being able to understand what you offer, understand your skills and values, and really think about how they align with the company. And this goes alongside strong application skills, and the MSc Careers team are really here to support you with all of these elements throughout your time on the programme. The one I'm going to spend most time on today is our MSc Practice Track. Practice Track is an option on 8 of our MSc programmes. So if you are thinking of studying one of our 4 finance programmes, whether it be joining us for management, international management, marketing or sustainability and management, you will have the option in the summer of either taking the traditional dissertation route or choosing the MSc Practice Track. This isn't the only embedded employability opportunity. We also have opportunities on some of our other programmes. So within our engineering, business management and innovation and technology management programmes, they also have a practice track. It runs slightly differently to the one that I'm here to talk about today, but you also have the option there of having this practical experience as part of your summer programme. On our MSc Business Analytics and our MSc Operations, Logistics and Supply Chain, you have the opportunity to complete a company dissertation. And this is where you would work with a company for your dissertation to help them answer a business challenge or a business problem, or use some of their data in your dissertation. There's a bit more information on business analytics opportunity being shared in the chat. So if you are considering business analytics, please do take a look at that. And we also have our Practicum opportunity on 2 of our programmes, so MSc Operations, Logistics and Supply Chain and MSc Sustainability and Management. And these happen earlier in the year. They'll happen as part of units in either semester 1 or semester 2. And again, it's an opportunity for you to engage with a corporate client as part of your programme. So lots of opportunity for embedded employability, and we also have a huge range of extracurricular opportunities available to you as well. We have a large programme of alumni speakers, guest speakers, where companies will come in and talk to you about their opportunities, about the work that they do. We often run company visits and opportunities such as the Future Business Challenge that you may have seen about as well. So a lot of opportunities to really engage with employers and really build your understanding of industry on the programmes here at Bath. In terms of the MSc Practice Track, the opportunity that we're here to talk about today, the MSc Practice Track is really an opportunity for you to apply your learned material, so the academic knowledge that you'll have gained as part of the programme, as well as the skills that you've gained throughout your education to real business problems. You'll be having an opportunity to work in a team in real life scenarios, so putting some of those other skills that you've gained into practice and demonstrating those in a team environment. And you have an opportunity to reflect academically on professional practice. So if you think back to what employers are looking for, you can see the practice track has elements that really support your evidence for lots of those skills and lots of those experiences that we know employers really value. It's the final thing you'll do on your MSc. It happens in the summer after you've done your 2 semesters of taught units. So it's the final thing for you to really bring all of that learning that you've had throughout the year together and start applying that to the business world. There are 3 links to the practice track. So you'll complete 2 group projects for external clients. One of those is company focused. So that's what we call the case project, and you're answering a business question for a corporate. And the second one is charity focused. So you'll work with a third sector organisation to do fund and awareness raising for a charity, and that's what we call the action project. The final element of the practice track brings those reflective skills into play, and you'll be asked to do an individual reflective essay, evaluating the projects and your experience and thinking about what you've learned and how those management principles apply to what you've seen in practice. I'm going to talk about those in a bit more detail very shortly, but for now I want to invite Anna to speak for a few moments and tell you a bit about why she chose practice track when she was studying the MSc management with us.
Hi guys, thank you Naomi for the introduction. So I've done, I was at Bath between 2018 and 2019. I'd done my undergraduate degree in psychology. So I'd already done a sort of traditional dissertation. And, you know, I'd enjoyed that, had a good experience, but I thought this was something a bit different. And I think one thing that I was sort of lacking going into my master's was that more work experience. And although practice track isn't direct work experience, it's basically like a consulting project. And that was the sort of work that I wanted to go into. And as Naomi talked about before about that industry connection, that's sort of what you get from practice track. And I'll speak a little bit later about what I actually did. But working with that company I thought was really helpful. The other thing I considered was, I think sometimes you're doing a dissertation for a long period of time. Sometimes that can be quite isolating because it's just you and it's all self-motivation. There is that support from, you know, one member of the team who sort of supports you in that. But what happens in practice track is you're in a group of people and you all motivate each other. And it's really good for that sort of team working experience.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anna. I think a real insight there into the sorts of decisions and the sorts of conversations we often have in semester 1 with students and when they're deciding which of the options would be best to take. So the first project you will do as part of the practice track is the case project. So again, this is working as part of a team, and this is your opportunity to apply your academic knowledge and your research skills. So we'll pair you up with students and we'll assign you to a company based on the academic programme you're studying at Bath and based on the challenge it is that they need answering. We have a whole range of companies that get involved in these projects. Recently, we've had companies such as Unilever, Lloyds Banking Group, IBM and Mars taking part. This year, we have just over 250 students taking the practice track, 17 different companies lined up to offer projects. I can't tell you who they are just yet because I haven't told the students just yet, and it wouldn't be fair to spoil the surprise for them. They'll be finding out in about a week and a half's time. For this project, you'll spend 3 to 4 weeks working in your team, looking at the project, looking at it in detail, thinking where you can add value before presenting your ideas, thoughts and recommendations back to your client. Often the clients get their colleagues involved in these presentations, so you may be presenting to a small handful of colleagues from across the organisation, and including often some very senior colleagues there to really hear what it is that you've got to say. And we know that companies really value this opportunity to work with students, and they really value the fresh thinking and often a really international perspective that you can bring to their challenges. You're able to look at them with a fresh perspective, fresh pair of eyes, bring in that current knowledge and research that you've been doing as part of your programs to help them move forward with these challenges. It's a very intense time. As you can imagine, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's really rewarding when you get to stand at the end and present your findings to the clients. And overwhelmingly, the clients are always really positive about the input they've had from their student teams. Once the case project is wrapped up, you'll move on to the action project. And this is a really self-managed project. And the idea here is that you'll be taking an idea and a plan right through to delivery. You'll be paired up with a charity and you'll be asked to deliver a fund and or awareness raising project for them. So it's up to you and your team to design the plan, to design what it is that you want to deliver, and then actually make that happen and reflect and evaluate on how that went. So it's slightly different from lots of other projects that you might have done in your academic life so far, where it's quite theoretical, where you're sort of presenting your ideas and what you would do. In the action project, we ask you to take that one step further and actually deliver your plans and your activities. We have large charities and small charities involved. So recently we've had charities such as Marie Curie, who are a cancer care charity, Send a Cow, a local Bath Cats and Dogs home, and Great Western Air Ambulance. So a huge variety of third sector organisations getting involved in these projects. And the action project is a really good opportunity for you to develop your project management skills, your organisational skills, and really your project delivery skills as well. They're very different. They really complement each other and allow you to have a really broad experience as part of the practice track. So Anna, if I can invite you back again, could you tell us a little bit about your experience of the two projects when you were taking practice track?
Yeah, sure. So the corporate project was with Lloyds Banking Group. And what's really interesting and topical now is it was actually about home working, which at the time, not that many companies were doing, but obviously now it's what everyone's doing. So yeah, that was really good to get that insight before everything sort of kicked off. And what was happening with Lloyds is that they did have quite a flexible working home arrangement, and then they were sort of struggling with keeping collaboration the same as it would be in the office. So our question was how to improve multi-site collaboration it was specifically within the finance teams in Lloyds Banking Group. And I think, so I was in a group of, I think there's 6 of us all together, actually 4 Chinese nationals, one guy from Thailand, and then me. So it's a very multicultural group. I think there's always going to be challenges, but that's quite the important part, really. I think one thing at the time was there wasn't a huge amount of research out there about home working, which I think would have probably changed massively now. So it just sort of took a long time to sort of find exactly what we were looking for and something that was relevant. And then also another challenge is sort of working on everyone's sort of different timescales. But then the flip side of that, I think what you get from it is you kind of get those sort of time management skills and those organizing skills, like you were saying. And then also obviously team working, just written notes here, also sort of those working to deadlines, all things that are very applicable when you go into the working world. And then I think the other huge part that was really enjoyable was actually going into the offices. So Lloyds Banking Group had the offices in Bristol, and we went there twice. So the first time we went to sort of gather data and gather information, we did a couple of focus groups with a few people. And then we also distributed questionnaires, and they were so lovely, so nice. So we had one main contact in Lloyds Bank who was quite a senior director, and then her sort of assistant who was probably about an analyst level. But then other people were really helpful as well, like very nice to speak to. And then we actually went back to do the presentation. I think what was nice is we felt a little bit more at ease then, because we've been there before and we sort of built up a relationship with that contact. Then we did our presentation to her. And as part of that, what you do is you'll do a big poster with all of the sort of information that you've gathered, and then you report that back. And they were really impressed. I think even more than we thought they were going to be. Really, really liked our project. And we got really good feedback. And then also from that, they very kindly offered, if any of us want to do in future, we might be able to do some work experience. I don't think that that's always the case, but it just kind of shows the sort of relationship that we have. It was a great experience. And then after that, we did the action project, which was with Genesis Trust, which is a homelessness charity. Most of the things they do is sort of helping people who are homeless or have been homeless or who are vulnerable, help them get back on their feet. So doing different things, they have certain life skills training. I think other things they do like mental health training, that sort of thing. And so part of that experience is kind of to raise some money, but it doesn't really matter how much money you raise. It's more about kind of that time you put into it. And, you know, like Naomi said before, those sort of organizing skills. So we did a few different fundraising. We did some street fundraising, which at the time is quite hard, but we did actually get some good money from that. And then we also did a market stall, which was a really good experience, but that one we actually found a bit harder. And then actually where we probably made our most money is that we also did an online fundraising, and then we sort of shared that on social media. So it's quite good as well to use different platforms and see kind of what worked well. But I think the other side of doing that action project is what we wanted to do is something kind of to give back to the charity, something that wasn't really about raising money, but more kind of making an impact. So what we did is we ran just forgotten the name, a cooking class, sorry. So also because we were quite a multinational team, we decided to do an Oriental cooking class. So we made a Thai soup and we made dumplings. And so we did that with some of the clients with the charity. And it was just a really good day, really nice experience. And I think they really enjoyed it and we really enjoyed doing it with them. And to be honest, I think that was probably the best part of that project for us, for me anyway. And I think it took a lot of sort of organizing to get up to that event. But the actual day was just great. And see if I've written anything else. Yeah, I think that's my experiences.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anna. And what's really nice to hear is hear about the relationship that you developed with the client over the program. You know, Practice Track, it's not an internship, so you're not going to be based full-time in the client offices. You are working as a group project, but actually you've got a really nice opportunity there to keep talking to and engaging with your client throughout. And it's really nice to hear examples of where students have been able to build a really positive relationship with both their corporate and their charity client through that process. And that's something that we would really encourage. So I'm really pleased to hear that they were so welcoming and so kind to you when you're doing that. So thank you. I just have a couple more things to say, and then we'll have time for some questions. So the final part of the practice track is an individual reflective essay. So once you've completed the 2 projects, you'll be asked to write a reflective essay, which is an opportunity for you to sort of evaluate the project, but particularly applying management principles. So you'll think of a management topic and you will have a look at some research, and you'll also think about how that worked in practice in your experience. And you might find that the research really emulates your experience, or you might find that there is a difference. But what you're being asked to do is spend that time, that really important time, reflecting on your experience and thinking about how those management principles have been applied, what the theory is saying, and how you've actually found those in practice. Because as I've mentioned a couple of times, reflection is a really important element of your employability and your skills development. I think we've got about 7 minutes or so left for some questions. My colleague Caroline has been keeping an eye on the chat, so she may have responded to some of them already. But Caroline, where should we start with questions?
Okay, great. So Danielle's asked, how do you choose which groups work with which companies? And is it guaranteed that you'll be working in an area that you're studying in? So if you're doing marketing, will it be a marketing project?
Perfect, that's a brilliant question. And so really, I think one of the important things to note and to think about with Practice Track is that you'll be answering real business problems. So these don't always fit neatly within a unit or within a program. So what we do is we put teams together where we think you can add value to that problem. So if it was a really specific marketing question, then of course we would be putting marketing students on that question. Often they don't fit so neatly into those boxes. So you might find there is an element of marketing with a company that's got really sustainable ethos. So we might put a mixed team together that brings students from the marketing program and students from the sustainability program together in a team so that you can work cross-course in order to work on that challenge in the best possible way. So when we're putting the teams together and when we're putting you with a company, we're always thinking about where you can add value. And that might be through academic knowledge, it might be through skills. So you might be from the finance programs and have really good analytical skills or numerical skills, which might come in handy on a more management project. And again, we might form a cross-course team in order to work on that topic.
Great. And then Madeline's asked about the action project, whether you are assessed on, how much money you've raised or on how you deliver the program, how you reflect on it, or how you reflect on your activities.
Excellent. Another really good question. And it's definitely the second. We're definitely assessing you and marking you on your planning, your preparation, and your decision making, and also how you've reflected on that. So have you been able to put some management theory behind the decisions that you've made? Why have you made the decisions that you have? How have you kind of tried this you've gained over the year to that fund and awareness raising? And how well have you reflected on that? So if it hasn't gone well, have you been able to understand why it's not gone well and suggest ideas for what you might do differently in the future? And if it's gone brilliantly, are you able to recognize why that went brilliantly? So it really is the reason and the rationale behind it. It's not a case of the group that raises the most money gets the highest grade at all. It's definitely the process that you've gone through behind that.
And then there's also been a question about the difference between the EBM and ITM practice track and the School of Management MSc Practice Track for the other courses.
Okay, perfect. So for the EBM and ITM practice track, I would definitely, if that's a program you're thinking about, then get in touch with the EBM and the ITM team, and I'm sure they'll be happy to talk about it. But in general, the big difference is the EBM and ITM practice track focus on the case project, and that runs for a much longer period of time. So you don't have the second project as part of that. You don't have an action project. There are slightly different elements to the case project, and you would only be working with students from the Innovation and Technology Management and the Engineering and Business Management programs. It's quite self-contained between those two programs, and the case project runs for longer. And that's the main difference between the two.
Okay, and then maybe a question for Anna as well. There have been a couple of questions around employability, you know, whether you choose practice track or dissertation. And I guess that varies, you know, students are free to choose and different things work for different students. But Anna, how did you feel it enhanced your employability taking part in practice track?
I think one thing is, we were talking earlier about that contact. I think kind of talking to those more senior stakeholders is a really good experience, and like I think that's something that can seem quite daunting, but then when people are so friendly and you find that common ground, you realize it's not that difficult, and that's something I've definitely taken into the workplace. I think also doing the reflective essay, I think that reflection thing, like Naomi was saying earlier, is such a huge thing, and it's something they really look for in when you go into the workplace. And actually quite often when you're doing assessment centres is one of the huge things. You'll do some sort of activity and then afterwards they ask you to reflect, and I think, to be honest, they're not really that concerned with what you're doing. That reflection is the most important part. So kind of, I suppose it's kind of having that self-awareness that I think is really useful. And then there's just sort of those more general kind of soft skills like the team working to deadlines, kind of also working in diverse groups, because actually one point towards the end, one of our group members did go back to China for a bit and then come back. So then we had to work on different time zones, which is something you have to do a lot when you work for a global company. But then also kind of, and this is what I mainly focused on in my reflective essay, was about working with people who are diverse, not necessarily in terms of nationality, but also in terms of personality. People have different preferences, the way they work, and also some people might be a bit quieter, but then they might still have, you know, a lot of different opinions to offer. You just sort of maybe have to nudge them a bit more, or you need to make sure that the one person who's the loudest isn't always the person that speaks. So kind of considering how, that different diverse way of working.
Fantastic. There've been a couple of questions as well around the sustainability practicum. I don't know, Naomi, if you can give a bit of insight into the practicum and the practice track.
Yes, it's not my speciality. I work more with the practice track, and my colleague Sarah works really closely on the practicum. But the practicum for both operations, logistics and supply chain and sustainability and management is one of the units that you can take as part of the programme. So it's less intense. It works kind of across a semester, or over a longer period of time, but there are some similarities. So you'll be getting a challenge from a business, and you'll be working with them to try and help them answer their questions. So the timing is different, the structure is different, and it's within the different programs. So there's less potential for kind of cross-program working. I think one thing that's probably useful to know in terms of the practice track, it is optional on those 8 programs. So if you don't choose it, then you will be able to do the dissertation instead. And we won't ask you to make your decision until close to the end of semester 1. So around December, January time is usually when we'll ask you to decide which option you want to take. So if you're thinking, I'm not sure if I want to do the practice track and the practicum, you'll have plenty of time in semester 1 to think about those different options before you make your decision. And I think a question might have come in around whether there's limited places, and there's not. So there'll be a deadline where you'll have to decide, and as long as you decide by that deadline, you will be able to take the practice track option.
Fantastic, that's great. I think we've answered most of the questions, and there's a link in the chat as well if you want to book on for a one-to-one.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. It has been a real delight to speak to you today. Please do get in touch if there's anything else that we can help you with. And I think the contact details have been placed in the chat. So thank you so much. I really hope you've enjoyed the session, and I will hopefully look forward to meeting you at Bath in the near future.